Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Come on in. Come on in, everybody. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. My name is Bob Rancourt. I serve on your board of directors. Today we're continuing the practice of having one of our board members sharing the words of welcoming and telling you a little bit about the work, sort of the nuts and bolts governance of the congregation. Welcome. Come on in, everybody. In my role as president of the board, I work to shepherd and coordinate the board's work and guide and support the many ways of the board, our staff and our committees and volunteers, and as they live into the goals and vision we have set out for our congregation. Specifically, I do things like presently I'm preparing the materials for the annual business meeting. It's driving me crazy, but that's what I'm keep doing and redoing over and over again. That's been occupying my time lately. But I'll be the presiding officer for that meeting at month's end. It's April 28 after service. Mark your calendars. You can get absentee ballots from the church office by tomorrow if you're not planning to be here. But that's one of the things. I write monthly newsletter articles. You might have seen those in the monthly newsletter. I write articles. And then I do things like next month, I'm leading a delegation to the Palm Springs Pride does an annual Harvey Milk breakfast, diversity breakfast in Palm Springs. So a bunch of us are attending that next month in May. And of course, I prepare the agenda for and preside over the regular board meetings. And let's see, what else? I'm going to General Assembly in June. It'll be my first General Assembly. And because I'm president of the church, I thought that might be a good idea to go. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff I do as your president of the church, and really it's just my privilege to serve. I always believe in giving back to what's been given to me. So I found my spiritual home here, and to the extent I have some time and talent to give back, one of the ways I do that is by serving on your board, as many others do. And many of you serve in many capacities around here, including welcoming us when we come to church in the morning membership. So thank you, everybody. As we begin our service, let's acknowledge that we gather today on the unceded lands of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla people, and we do commit to grow in our understanding and relationship with this land and with the people who inhabited it and nurtured it before our arrival. In our congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, of all ages and sizes, people of all economic statuses and professions, of all physical or mental abilities, people of all races and ancestries and cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status or level of civic engagement. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here, and we're glad you're here with us this morning. Right now, we'd like to take a moment to greet newcomers and visitors. If you're here for the first time and are comfortable, you're invited to stand or to raise your hand, and an usher will come to you with a microphone. If you're one of these visitors, please just share your name and where you're from, and after service, we can get to know you better at coffee hour. How about on the left side? Anybody here? We've got Trustee Bill over here, Bill Masco, with the microphone. Any volunteers? Any victims? No. Yeah, here we go. All right. See, that did it.
This is scary, a victim.
No. We don't bite.
Yeah. Constance Peterson from Iowa City, Iowa.
Oh, wow. Welcome.
You all know about the girls' basketball?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my claim to fame.
All right. Welcome, Constance from Iowa. Iowa for the girls. Yeah, basketball. Big deal. They sold out the men apparently this year or something like it's more expensive to go to the girls game this year. It's super cool. That's really cool to hear. Women, sorry. We have on some more visitors in our middle section here in the back row. We have a visitor, Bill. We have a couple visitors.
Hi, my name is Patty Evans. This is our first time here, but we were here for Gloria Capps Memorial and found the congregation to be very welcoming. So it's great to be with you today.
Wonderful.
I'm Patty.
Patty, welcome, Patty.
Excuse me, I'm Marty. We're from Desert Hot Springs, and we're looking for a spiritual group.
Nice. Patty and Marty, welcome. How about in this section over here? Yeah, we got a visitor. There we go.
Good morning. I'm a willing victim. My wife and I, Judy, my name is John Harmer. We're from Borderlands Unitarian Congregation, south of Tucson in Arizona, in the desert close to the border. And we're here as guests of Wendy Wright, my sister-in-law.
Okay.
And it's so nice to be in this congregation visiting here. Thank you.
Welcome from Tucson. John and Judy from Tucson. Welcome. Any other guests in this section? How about the last section over here? More guests? Oh, darn it. We didn't get that one, Bill. But we did good today. Thank you, Bill, for that. So welcome, everybody. Definitely welcome to the visitors. We're glad you're here with us today. And now, let's bring our Tibetan bowl to begin our service and then listen to our music for centering.
Good morning again. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the honor and delight of serving this congregation as its minister. However you found us, however many times you've been with us here in person or online, welcome. We are a congregation and a tradition that celebrates the richness and beauty of individual lives and commits to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions and work for a thriving future for all of life. Kim Mason writes these words to start our service today. Once upon a time, chemists believed they could transform lead into gold or death into life. We laugh, but are we not also in the business of alchemy, turning loneliness into connection, pain into comfort, anger into solidarity, faith into action? The subtle magic of congregations combines love with justice, creates hope out of fear, transforms individuals into community. Here we engage in a holy alchemy, finding beauty in the ordinary and life in the present. Come, let us worship together and be transformed together. Let's remain seated as we sing our opening song, Gathered Here. We'll sing it twice through all together, and then I'm going to divide you into some parts.
Here us for the chalice lighting. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Margaret Beeman will join us to light the biopop candle. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. Now I have a reading it's from After the Good News, Progressive Faith Beyond Optimism by Nancy MacDonald Ladd. Some measure of estrangement may be part of the human experience. We may not be able to banish it altogether any more than we could cultivate carefully studied moral perfection. Paul Tillich thought that we are always pulled between our dependence on others and the astonishing hubris that compels us to place our own selves at the center of the universe. In this tug of war between estrangement and mutuality, the race may never be fully run. Still, this does not mean that we should simply stop moving. Just because we are honest does not mean we cannot be hopeful. As Václav Havel famously articulated, hope is not just another version of optimism. Optimism tells us a preordained narrative. It is an assertion that the scales have already been tipped toward triumph. Optimism is always busy absolving somebody. Hope is different. Like faith, hope is the exact opposite of certainty. It does not presume an outcome for good or for ill. It lies in the waiting moment when the tug from both directions is not yet fully resolved, and when a great many things are still possible. It moves to the humble spaces that open when we allow ourselves to be uncertain and thus not fully contained. It is the possibility, though not the inevitability, of a better way. Philosopher Hannah Arendt declares, even in the darkest of times, we have the right to expect some illumination, a light that some men and women in their lives and works will kindle under almost all circumstances and shed over the time span that was given them on earth. We have the right to expect some illumination, even in the shadow of the dead utopias. Even if we cannot expect to stand in the sunshine of pure promise, we can expect that both hope and meaning are evident in our interconnected lives. We are bound always to the ground of our being, the truth of our deepest selves, and the network of accountability we form with one another. Beautiful. In this concept of connectedness and interconnectedness that the UU principles profess, we ask the ushers to come forward and collect our donations that will help to feed this church and this congregation and all we are able to do for the outside society.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of Canada with a little Joni Mitchell on a Sunday morning. Thank you, Joel. We pause in our service this time each week to share the joys and sorrows that are in our hearts, the pains and the excitement that we bring together as we come to this place to see and hear each other's voices, to see each other's smiles and the brightness in each other's eyes. We are glad to be together, glad to bring all of ourselves to our communities. These are the joys and sorrows shared with us today. Joni and Bill light a candle of absolute joy that our daughter's PET scan last week showed a 60% reduction in size of her cancer tumors. The chemo is working as hard as it is for her. A candle of celebration time for Jeannie Milliken on her 90th birthday. Jeannie has visitors and isn't here with us today, but Walter and Jack light a candle of love and healing for our friend Deke, who begins intensive chemotherapy tomorrow. And happy, happy birthday to our wonderful piano player, Joel. Happy birthday, Joel. We are so grateful for the sharing of these joys, so grateful for the sharing of the sorrow, the sharing of triumph, the sharing of struggle, the sharing of hope and possibility. We carry so much more in our hearts, each of us, as we come together. So we pause now for a quiet moment of contemplation, of reflection, perhaps for you a quiet moment of just resting. There is no just about it. Resting in this place, surrounded by love, surrounded by connection, and reminded of the deeper love that we are all a part of, that lives through us and lives in us, that sparks our imagination, that fuels our anger at injustice, that brings us hope in the dark times. So we gather and pause together in quiet reflection and prayer. Spirit of life, we gather together today as a community. We gather together today as people from many places, from many lives, many homes, people of many wonderings and many wanderings. We gather here today together because we know that we are stronger and more hopeful in each other's company, that life is more possible when we have support and connection and concern and love. And so we bring the prayers of our hearts, the worries of the day here into this place. We bring our gladness at the beautiful weather, our joy at visiting family. We bring our worries about the state of our nation and the world. We carry with us, especially in our hearts, as our hearts ache today at the death, destruction, displacement caused by the Israeli government's assault on Gaza, and our hearts hold fear and worry for the hostages still held by Hamas. We weep for the thousands of dead, and our hearts cry out for an end to this violence and destruction. We pray that our own government will use its considerable influence toward peace, not toward more death. May we join our voices with those of Palestinians and Israelis and people of all faiths and nationalities around the world, calling for an end to this violence, calling for access to desperately needed aid and relief. May we also join our voices in the work of our hands to resist Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, both of which are thriving in our nation right now, to resist Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and the evil of hatred and bigotry where we find them, in our communities, in our nations, in our hearts. We pray for peace and safety for all. We carry this, we carry so much more in our hearts today, Spirit of life. And we come together and we rest. And we breathe into the quiet of this place. Breathe into its hope. Breathe into its possibility. Breathe into its deep deep and abiding love. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering and violence. May all beings know love. Will you join your voices with me, friends, as we sing Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor? Friends, your voices singing that song are always so healing for me. I am so grateful for you and your presence. So my words today grow out of a conversation with Suzanne and Jerry Hogsett a while ago. Jerry and Suzanne valiantly braved the buffeting of bidding and counterbidding. Oh, it was vicious but they came out, I don't think it was vicious actually, but anyway, they came out victorious in our annual church auction and won the invitation to collaborate with me on a topic for a sermon and a service. And so much of what why is that funny? Okay, don't worry, it's okay. So much of what I say today, especially in the first half, comes from our conversation and for the wonderful notes and thoughts that they shared with me. So Jerry and Suzanne, thank you. I'm grateful for the inspiration for this. They shared with me about how in their travels around the world, they had noticed something that made them wonder. As they traveled, they encountered many people who were living with many fewer financial and physical resources, or were living into the aftermath of natural disasters, who had lost their homes or lived regularly in uncertainty. And they saw these people who they encountered being generous with each other, being joyful together, sharing what they had with those who needed it, helping to rebuild communities together, sharing food with neighbor and stranger alike. And they shared with me that after every one of these trips, when they came home here to the United States, they found something that felt different. A loneliness, a separation, a disconnection between neighbors. Despite their relative affluence here, they wondered who was actually poor and who was actually rich in terms of the depth and reality of life. What if we thought about poverty and wealth, poorness and richness, not just in terms of finances and physical resources, though those are important to pay attention to, but in spiritual terms? How might we think about them differently? What might a life that was lived in a spiritually rich way look like, be like? A life where we feel and show more connection with each other, with those around us, where we choose to interact with each other in ways that showed that we understood how interwoven our lives and realities are, where we reach out and build community and support with our neighbors, build friendship, build connection. A life where we aren't just conventionally polite. This happens in Canada too. I understand. I'm Canadian. I understand what conventionally polite looks like. You know what I mean by that. But distant still with each other. Not a world like that, but a life where our active concern for each other's well-being is lived out in ways large and small, in kindness for ourselves and for others. A life where contributing to the betterment of the world, of the country, of our state, our city, our local community is central to the choices we make in our hearts, in our families, and in our communities. This is the life that Jerry and Suzanne shared with me that they saw in other places, which they wondered about when they came home again. I'm very grateful that you shared that wondering with me. It invaded my mind like a little virus and made me wonder, so thank you. And in order to come to this way of being, though, we engage intentionally, I think, in our relationships, our civic life, in our work life and neighbors, grounded in practices that help us develop the skills and attitudes which lead to deeper connection, to kindness, to concern and care. We build habits and practices that help us see clearly, see and know the truth about what is actually going on in the world around us in our lives. And we do these things not just so that we feel happier in our own skin, more centered in our own understandings in the face of the chaos around us, though those are not bad things. But in this way of thinking, we choose these attitudes and practices so that we can see more clearly the reality in front and inside us, see it for what it is and not hide away from it. We choose these attitudes and practices to reorder ourselves in the face of the bombardment of information and disinformation, anxiety and fear-mongering, righteous anger and call to judgment of the world around us, so exacerbated by a 24-hour news cycle and social media and public figures who intentionally blast us with too much information and disinformation all mixed together, too much to handle, so that we figure out we can't act in the face of it. We choose these attitudes and practices to come home to ourselves, to our mind, our heart, and our body, and to resist that estrangement that Nancy MacDonald Ladd wrote about in the words that Ginger shared earlier, and embrace the network of accountability we form with one another. A practice, as my colleague, the Reverend James Ford says, of following our hearts into the deep, discovering intimacy within ourselves, intimacy with others, intimacy with the whole glorious, awful mess. He's coming to preach for us in August. This attitude and chosen way of being is not about escape. It's more about perseverance, about being able to experience reality without looking away. In her book, When Things Fall Apart, Pema Chodron writes about this. She says, "The spiritual journey is not about heaven and finally getting to a place that's really swell. In fact, that way of looking at things, it was what keeps us miserable. To stay with our shakiness, to stay with a broken heart, with a rumbling stomach, with the feelings of hopelessness and wanting to get revenge, to stay with those This is the path of true awakening, sticking with that uncertainty, getting the knack of relaxing in the midst of chaos, learning not to panic. This is the spiritual path, she says. During my last year of seminary in Chicago, we lived on Lake Michigan, at the north end of the city, right next to Loyola University. We were just a short walk from their campus, actually. Now, many universities, especially ones founded or run by religious institutions, as Loyola was, have weekly chapel services for students, staff, and community members, an opportunity for a midweek reconnection with individual and group faith, an opportunity for collective prayer and contemplation. At Loyola, this service happened on Wednesday evenings, and it was a Taizé service. Now, Taizé is a tradition of singing worship. Short, beautiful, harmonized chants and responses, kind of like what we did earlier this morning, are sung by the congregation and the choir over and over again, repeated until they envelop the senses and move past the barriers of the intellect. Songs are alternated with silence and prayer, and an atmosphere builds or settles on the gathered congregation. I attended this service almost every week of that year of seminary, coming home from school on the south side of Chicago on the L, having dinner, and then wandering quietly up the road to the chapel on the lake, and joining in the singing and the silence. That practice sustained me that year, despite the lyrics and the chants and the words of the prayers being part of a tradition that I no longer felt part of, participating in the creation of beauty, being subsumed in something larger than myself, letting my heart and my body and my mind get rearranged, settled, cleared. Think about that. Participating in the creation of beauty, subsumed in something larger myself, and letting my heart and my mind and my body get rearranged, settled, and cleared. Letting them rest in all of that for an hour meant that I was able to be more present and more deeply connected to myself and my community the remainder of the week. I would always leave and walk home along the lake tired, but renewed, open, and more hopeful, or grounded. And recalling this experience of Taizé reminds me to remember that spiritual practice, spiritual journeys, are not just about our minds or our intellects. And the invitation to reach out beyond my own tradition, my own culture, and see and hear how other people with stories different than mine live into a more spiritually connected life. I have just started reading Cole Arthur Riley's book, This Here Flesh, Spirituality, Liberation, and the Stories That Make Us. The title comes from Toni Morrison's book, Beloved, from that moment where the people of the community, the slave community, are gathered in the woods and are reminded by one of their elders that their bodies, despite everything else, their bodies were holy, despite the world around them telling their bodies were owned by others. This here flesh. Riley, who is African American, shares in the early pages of the book that she's focused on more than just individual silent modes of spiritual practice. After contemplating the experience of encountering the ever-moving, ever-singing trees that surrounded her home, she writes this: I used to think that Christian contemplation was reserved for white men who leave copies of C.S. Lewis's letters strewn about and know a great deal about coffee and beard oils. There's an image for you. If this is you, there is room for you here, she says. But I am interested in reclaiming a contemplation that is not exclusive to whiteness, to intellectualism, to ableism, or to mere hobby. She writes, and as a black woman, I am disinterested in any call to spirituality that divorces my mind from my body, my voice, or my people. To suggest a form of faith that tells me to sit down alone and be quiet, it does not rest easy on the bones, she says. It is a shadow of true contemplative life, and it would do violence, she finishes, to my black woman's soul. It's her story, but we think outside. She continues, for me, most simply, contemplative spirituality is a fidelity to beholding the divine in all things. In the field, on the walk home, sitting under the oak tree that hugs my house, a sacred attention. So a commitment to the spiritual life invites us to transform how we interact with ourselves and the world around us, transform how we understand ourselves to be part of that world and our communities within it. In some traditions, we're invited to move toward perfecting ourselves, perfecting our relationship with a perfect divinity. In our tradition, however, we understand that we are never perfect. The journey is never complete, always unfolding as we are always deepening our practice and our understanding. As Pema Chodron said, when you open yourself to the continually changing, impermanent, dynamic nature of your own being and of reality, you increase your capacity to love and care about other people, and your capacity to not be afraid. You're able to keep your eyes open, your heart open, your mind open. And you notice when you get caught up in prejudice, bias, and aggression. You develop an enthusiasm for no longer watering those negative seeds from now until the day you die. And you begin to think of your life as offering endless opportunities to start to do things differently. Now, I've spent quite a bit of time focused on more contemplative spiritual traditions today, partly because it's easy to call those practices up these days when we think about crafting a spiritual life. So I want you to hear that I don't mean to tell you to just go and meditate and it will be all better. May not hurt, but first of all, the thing will be all better. It might not get better. Or another it might come along, will come along. What we're striving to do is to be better at remaining present in our lives, engaged even when they are scary or painful, even when they are triumphant and glorious, not just to weather the storms, but to see our part in them and understand that we are connected and whole and never alone. And also, I don't mean to tell you just to go and meditate and it will all be better, because there are as many ways to build connection, to live a life of spirit, to learn to see clearly as there are people in this room, people in this world. You might walk in the desert or the forest, smelling and listening to the trees and the skittering of tiny feet, or journey to the ocean to hear and feel its immensity, or plunge your hands into the soil of the land you inhabit, planting new life, nurturing the life that is already there. You might use your hands to craft beauty or necessity, using yarn to make socks or shawls, carving wood to make a chair or an icon, or mixing and kneading masa to make tamales with your family, or flour and sugar to make cupcakes, or turning cucumber and onion into pickles, or leftovers into soup or bread, and whatever is in the fridge into a sandwich. You might use pen and paper to record your dreams or make note of the gratitudes and worries. At the end of the day, you might use a keyboard to craft love poetry, or protest war, or imagine new worlds. You might take up a pencil and solve puzzles, or design new homes for your neighbors, or tell a story in pictures, or capture the image of that lizard basking in the sun in your yard. You might pick up a hammer or a drill to rebuild your neighbor's damaged home, or rebuild a fallen bridge, or grab a wrench to help your niece repair the engine of her car, or help your roommate put together that IKEA furniture. You might run or ride your bike, or invite your body into the forms of yoga or Pilates. You might do those stretches your physical therapist has been offering you, demanding that you do. Or let your body remind you of the form of the Tai Chi dance, or the stances of fencing. Or you might sink into cool water or warm water and notice the way your body responds. You might indeed pause and sit in meditative silence, or whirl in dance, or drop to your knees in prayer, or sing a song of praise with your fellow choristers. What makes a life spiritual is not so much what you do, as how you are doing it, what your intention is, how what you do reminds you that you are not the emperor of everything, that you are part of something vast and powerful and awe-inspiring, that you are awe-inspiring, that you are the universe playing hide and seek with itself, as Alan Watts says, and that you know tomorrow may be different from today. It may be harder, it may be easier, but you will still be you, and we will still be we, and that together we can transform ourselves and our worlds into places where we bring much intention and care and grounded love to each time we interact with our neighbors. Each time we go through the checkout line at the grocery, each time we check in for a medical appointment, each time we meet with our child's teacher or our students' parents, each time we speak at a city council meeting or in a congregational board meeting or an HOA board meeting, each time we make a choice as we fill out our ballots, each time we post a comment or a response on social media, each time we march in protest or collaborate with others to bring awareness or change, each time we see someone in need in front of us, each time we hear the news and wonder with those who share our home how we can respond to the fear and violence, each time we encounter disaster or frustration or just someone who thinks differently than we do. I just spent a lot of time essentially chanting a lot of words at you. I do enjoy language and playing with it, but I did that for other reasons. First, I don't want you to think that the spiritual life is a discrete and one-off thing, a single decision that you make and then everything works like a charm. It does involve practices and habits, but it's also about attitudes and choices and grounding. And second, evidence. Evidence is a spiritually rich life. Those things that Jerry and Suzanne suggested to us earlier, it's found in the smallest bits of our lives as well as in the largest of movements. It's not just something that happens here inside these walls or during the time you're meditating or praying or doing yoga. It permeates everything we do. Peter Mayer, the singer-songwriter who wrote Blue Boat Home, also wrote a song about his shift toward a broader vision of spirit, of holiness, as he grew away from the church of his youth towards Unitarian Universalism. The song is called Holy Now, and it ends with these words. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird, shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent air, because everything is holy now. May we order our hearts and our days to never forget that holiness in the world around us, all of us beings large and small around us, and in ourselves. May it be so. We're going to sing again. We're going to sing Blessed Spirit of My Life. Please rise together in body or in spirit.
Fill me with all
Thank you, Reverend Ian, for those incredible words of inspiration. Now, we have a few people that have some announcements to make today. One, Denise Agar wants to make an announcement for social justice. Denise?
Good morning. I'm Denise Jansen-Eager, Social Justice Chair, with one brief announcement. You got 1 week to fill out your nomination forms. Right now, we have 3 nominations. For a full contingent, we need 8. You're lacking. Step up. If you want to vote, you need 9 or more. Share the plate. Third Sunday of every month, we share the plate with organizations, nonprofit organizations in the Coachella Valley and High Desert that are doing good works, that are getting into good trouble. Nominate one that you know is doing really good work, okay? Thank you.
Also, Sandy Slayton, was this short announcement?
Good morning, I'm Sandy. Sort of on a different note, I'm here representing the Script to Stage to Screen program, which is a performing arts organization, part of our congregation, for those of you who do not know. And I just want to let you know about our April offering, which is a play that's put on here by new playwrights. I'm really excited actually about the April plays because they're written by a young person who was a teenager actually when she wrote these 2 one-act plays for which she won the Young Playwrights Festival Award. So that's kind of cool. Her name is Brooklyn Rutledge, and there are 2 plays. One's called Main Character, about a young woman who's completely, totally, absolutely average high school girl, definitely not anyone who would be a main character. She's overly aware of this fact, and yet here she is dealing with all the annoyances that come with being the star of the show. And the second one is called The Search for Snowflake, which is about a young woman who has a cat. She's really shy, but she'll do anything for her cat, and things develop. This is on Friday and Saturday, April 19th and 20th. And the shows are here at 7:30. Box office opens at 7, and the tickets are only $15. So it should be fun. And I also just want to remind everybody that Script to Stage to Screen is shutting down our program in June. So this is your third to last opportunity to see a show. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sandy. And now, join us as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Before my benediction, a reminder that after the service today, we will be having a budget review. So we will take a look at the proposed budget for our next fiscal year, and so that you can ask questions about it, so we can have conversation about it leading into our annual business meeting later in the month. So please grab a coffee and a treat, talk to your neighbors for a little while, make some connections, and then come back in and help us look at our budget a little bit. So please do join us here. Those of you who are online, we will be doing this online as well, so please click on the link that you got in your email. Where will the meeting be? Here, right in this room, yes. Today I have in my heart these words of my colleague and teacher, Mark Bellatini. He writes this: "Go in peace, live simply at home in yourself. Be just in your word, just in deed. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Do not forget your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire with desire to be wealthier than your peers. and never stint your hand of charity. Practice forbearance in all you do. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of your body. Be good to it. It is a good gift. Crave peace for all the peoples in this world, beginning with yourselves, and go as you go with the dream of that peace set firm in your heart. Go in peace, my friends, to love and serve the world.
Thank you. Yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah, thank you. No, not really. 57. Thanks. Yesterday. Yeah, well, I looked at it, and, it was fine. I chose to do that, and it was all good. Thank you. Well, it helps to have a piano like this to play. My goodness. This thing puts out a lot of sound. Well, this is analog. I actually have a role in digital keyboard. I always thought I'll never get a digital keyboard for homies. I'll always have a piece of my sound on this. Really good. You don't have to have it tuned. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you very much. That's good.